Kelly Aramaki.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move to the introduction of the student.
Thank you, President Watson. We have the pleasure tonight of being joined by Angela Zhang. Angela is a Bellevue Digital Discovery student. She's in the 9th grade and she is joining us online. So I would just ask Mr. Zorn to ensure that Angela is here, and Angela will lead the pledge, lead the acknowledgement, and then make some remarks to the board.
Hello. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Duwamish and Snoqualmie Indian tribes. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. We reflect on the historic context that brings us to reside on this land and accept responsibility to interrupt erasure. We commit to an ongoing partnership with the Snoqualmie tribe as we listen to, learn from, and lead with their guidance.
Now it's time for the student update.
Hi everyone, my name is Angela and I'm a 9th grader at Bellevue Digital Discovery. I play golf competitively and have been fortunate to have considerable success within Washington and at the national and international level. Some highlights so far include competing in last year's U.S. Women's Open as the youngest participant, winning the Washington Women's Amateur in 2022 as the youngest winner in tournament history at 13 years old, and winning again last year in 2023. I was named the Washington Women's Player of the Year in 2023 and the Junior Girls Player of the Year in 2022 and 2023. I have also recently been nominated as one of 5 candidates for Seattle Sports Commission's Women's Sports Star of the Year. As my development in golf progressed, it became clear that I would need to put in more time to hone my skills. Additionally, frequent travel to tournaments all over the nation meant that it would be hard for me to keep up at an in-person school. The establishment of Bellevue Digital Discovery has been incredible in allowing me to have the best of both worlds. I'm able to create a flexible school schedule that enables me to take classes anywhere, anytime, and with enough academic rigor. At the same time, travel to compete in tournaments in pursuit of my goals of playing golf at the highest level. It truly is creating a personalized learning experience for myself and all of Digital Discovery students. Although online school is not quite the same as attending school in person, I can feel that our teachers and counselors work hard to create a strong school community. They try their best to make all students feel welcome and seen, create a safe learning environment, and encourage student interaction. I would like to take the time to say a massive thank you to everyone at Bellevue Digital Discovery and Bellevue School District. From the likes of my teacher, Ms. Cologne, and counselor, Mrs. Hatch, to our principal, Mr. Dunwald, and superintendent, Dr. Aramaki, and everyone in between. I would not be where I am today without the support and opportunities provided by each of you. Thank you for having me here today, and I hope to see you all again soon.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to see that one of my hopes for Digital Discovery has come true, that it would be good for kids, in sports. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
President Watson, if I may, incredibly as it may sound, Angela was very humble in her accomplishments. The word phenom has been applied, and oftentimes we're superlative in our praise. In this case, it's not. She is a phenom, and it's incredible that our digital discovery programs allow her to follow her passion in such a successful way. So thank you for being here, Angela. I know you're very, very busy.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Next, we have the acknowledgements. I'm going to need the slide. Okay. Um, okay, so I'm going to add, because we missed it last time, the Martin Luther King Day holiday that we celebrated. And then we have on the 27th of January, the National Holocaust Remembrance Day, Americans of Chinese Descent Month, School Board Recognition Month, and National Mentoring Month. Okay. And next, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda. Can I have a second?
I second.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, good. So we've passed the agenda. Next, we have the consent agenda. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda? Or shall I move that we pass the consent agenda and just ask you, one of you, to second it?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Now, I'd like to have a second of discussion on the consent agenda. Generally, we don't have anything to say, but I have something to say. I want to say I'm very, very sorry and would like to express condolences to the family of the employee who died. And I would like to call for, I have said this a couple of years ago, but things change over. If we could have help, maybe sending a card from the school board to the family, because I just really feel bad to hear something like that, if somebody died while serving our kids. All right, thank you. And then could we take a vote for passing the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, good. And then we're ready for superintendent updates.
All right, thank you so much, President Watson. I just have a few things to share, not as exciting of an update as I try to make them, but let's go ahead and go to the next slide. It's really important things that I wanted to share with the community. The first thing is there are two bills that are going through the legislature right now that have the potential of hugely impacting the Bellevue School District. And so on Monday, January 15th, I was able to go down and speak at the Senate Early Learning and K-12 Education Committee meeting. Director Aris joined me, and some of our students were down in Olympia at the same time. But there is a bill, two bills that are going through around regionalization of the local levy. And so we were able to go down and advocate for that. Next slide. I just want to show you, we've worked on a letter that we have 12 districts signed on to, advocating for regionalization as well as an increase to the local effort assistance, which I'll explain in a second. But you can see this list of districts that are going through budget challenges just like we are. And it's a range of districts. It's not just East Side districts. It's districts like Easton, San Juan Island, North Shore, Highline, Shelton, the symbol with the peace arches, Blaine, of course, Washougal. But you can see just the range of districts, large and small, are going through major budget issues. And we are asking the legislature basically to use the tools that they have in order to support districts. Next slide. So you can see here for our families who have been interested in what we're lobbying for, I'll just read some of this. It says, as superintendents of the school districts across the state of Washington, representing urban and rural, large and small districts, and everything in between, we are asking the Washington state legislators to take key actions using the tools available right now to help assist districts address the financial cliff that they are currently facing. Those actions include these two things: apply regionalization on the local enrichment levy, which have two bills associated, House Bill 2215 and then Senate Bill 5956. And then increase LEA funding to $22.50 per student. So LEA, local effort assistance, is the state's funds that support districts that don't have the ability to raise funds in the local levy. So the local levy itself is problematic if we didn't have kind of an equity counterpart. And so Bellevue, in addition to these other districts, we're working together to advocate for districts that have the ability to raise funds and support themselves through the levy, as well as to advocate for districts that don't have that same ability. I guess what I would say is longer term, we're advocating for the state to come in and to improve the way that we support schools, particularly in increasing funds for special education. But in the meantime, we are asking the state to step in and to support us now. As people know, Bellevue is facing a $40 million shortfall over the course of 3 years. So $10 million this year, but then we're expecting another $15 million shortfall for the next 2 subsequent years. And this is after we've addressed an over $20 million shortfall this past year, which included closing of 2 schools. And so people oftentimes look at Bellevue as a school district that's affluent and has a lot of resources, but we are in a financial strife right now. And many districts, including the ones that are listed on this slide, are going through the same. And so that is our advocacy at the state legislature. And we have board members and myself who are going to be there this weekend to advocate on behalf of our school district. And thank you to the PTA for all of your hard work in advocating. We are just thankful for all of you as well. Next slide. So if you recently have tried to get onto the school district website, you may have gotten a 503 message, which is that our site is down. And so what I'd like to just mention is we have been undergoing some cybersecurity issues over the past few days. It's nothing insidious where people are trying to get information or anything like that, but it has been something where people have just been trying to create a little bit of chaos. And so it's sort of similar to what happens when Taylor Swift announces a new concert and everybody floods Ticketmaster. It's kind of like that, except that it's using malware. So you can see here the issue that we're facing, which is somebody is sending in all of these kind of attacks at a website, which then when somebody actually wants to go to the website, they're not able to get there because there's just too much. You can see on the right, those are the hours of the day for January 24th, and you can see kind of in that 6th hour, just the jump in kind of the access to our website, which then causes the website to crash. So anyways, if you're getting an error message, that is the reason, and we are working to fix it. We are working with a company to put a "I am not a robot," I think, thing on there, right? So that we can make sure that people who need to get in can get in while we fix the problem. Okay. Next slide. Just want to shout out to Congressman Adam Smith, who was here in town this week visiting our CTE programs at Sammamish High School. We're really proud to be able to showcase the amazing CTE programs at Sammamish High School and in the district. And then the last slide is just a reminder to the community that we have a school board vacancy in District 3. Yeah, thank you, District 3. And so if you live in District 3, which is kind of the Enetai, Beaux Arts, Woodridge neighborhood, kind of goes up to about Lake Hills. If you live in that region, and you can see the map online, if you go through the little "I am not a robot" thing, then we'd love it for people to apply. There are 2 different ways to go about it, and so I think there's been a little bit of confusion. If you know of somebody who you think would be a great school board director, there's a way to nominate that person. If you are interested in being a school board director, you don't have to be nominated. You can actually just apply. And we would love to see as many people as can apply for this. It's a really incredible way to serve your community. And that's the end of my update.
Okay, thank you. Next, it's time for public comment. Okay. So you all can read the slide, but we have some guidelines on public comments, and just to make sure that we don't want any uncivil comments. So anything libelous, slanderous, an invasion of privacy, anything obscene or indecent that would violate a school district policies or procedures, that would be, you know, harassment, intimidation, bullying, discrimination, anything that would incite a unlawful act or violate a lawful school regulation or create a material and substantial disruption to the board meeting. But other than that, we'd like to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to pass it to Chief of Staff John Harrison.
Thank you, President Watson. The speakers' names are listed here in front of you. They're all in person this evening. I would ask each speaker to make your way to the podium and be ready to go while the speaker in front of you is finishing up their comments. Each speaker has 2 minutes, as you know. And what we want each speaker to do is the first thing you do when you get to the podium is introduce yourself and state your name for the record. Thank you very much, and we'll begin with Rachel.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Lee. I have 4 kids, 2 graduate from Bellevue High School and 2 6th graders at Otto Middle School. For the last few years, I've been heavily involved in the school PTSAs, and I'm currently a trustee and the treasurer for the Bellevue Schools Foundation. And just listening to Dr. Aramaki speaking our budget deficit, we want to know, like, what can we help the school foundation? And also for a message for the parents, like based on our record from the school foundation, we know a lot of things the parents side they can't do. Only based on last year's record, we have only 4% from the public community donation. So we have a lot of space to grow, and I believe we have a lot of things to do to support our school district. I think that's, oh, sorry, lost track of. This is something, I just delivered the comments, right? Okay, it's okay if less than 2 minutes. I think I covered all my topics.
Okay.
And I don't need to ask for questions, right? No, okay, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Directors. Tonight, I want to talk about equitable access to programs. Specifically, I want to highlight the lack of support for students with learning disabilities in BSD language programs, including dual language immersion and heritage language. To understand the problem, you need to first understand that historically, students with learning disabilities have been discouraged from applying to these programs. As recently as this fall, the BSD website stated, parents of children with challenges to learning should seriously consider the appropriateness of this program for their child. The general education curriculum in these programs is delivered in both the program language and English. However, there are not special education services nor any type of Tier 3 intervention in the program language to support these students. These students are graded in the program language. In kinder and first grade, English literacy is not even graded, just the program language. These students take district assessments in the program language and are expected to learn core academic subjects in the program language like literacy, math, science, and social studies. The general education curriculum in these academically challenging programs is in fact delivered in the program language and English. Therefore, if students are going to be served and have access to these programs in a meaningful way, there must be specially designed instruction and services for students who qualify in these programs. But that is not happening. Students struggle, and when they are not supported, they just leave the program rather than being left to fail unsupported. The culture here needs to change, and students with disabilities need to be viewed as students who can achieve the seal of biliteracy and earn AP credit in world languages. District practices will not change until all students are viewed as capable and appropriate for all BSD programs. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erwin, and I am a student at Sammamish High School. And today I'm going to be talking about FRCs. And we have started build season, and the new game has been introduced for Sammamish High School's robotics team 2412. As of now, we are currently designing and building a robot and making sure that it is CADed, and we're making sure that all our designs are capable of working. And we are, so a lot of the focus on our team is teamwork, and yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Clark. I'm one of the mentors for 2412. And I just wanted to catch you up on some of their latest activities. In addition to the build season being kicked off and that they're starting to build their robot. On Monday, they went to the PTSA Focus Day in Olympia, where they met with Senator, we sent 8 robototes to Olympia. They met with Senator Tana Sen, Vandana Slaughter, Lisa Wellman, Patty Kuttner, the staff of Mylan Tai, and the Minority Caucus. And then on Wednesday, they testified for Bill, 4 of them testified for Bill 5849 for computer science graduation requirement. And then on Saturday, they had an advocacy workshop for other teams. They had teams nationwide. We had one from Pennsylvania, one from Nevada. This is our first contact with Nevada and with advocacy, Oregon, and Washington. So it was very, very well received and very enthusiastic. And then on Monday, they helped the Woodinville team prepare to talk to their school board. I'm the advocacy mentor, so this is all advocacy stuff. And we have 2 members who are nominated for the National PTA Youth Advocacy Award. So we're doing a lot with advocacy. In addition to building robots and planning an event, we have, there's going to be an event at Sammamish the end of March, I think March 20th. And you're all invited to come see the robots in person and meet with the team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Madison Asinovich, and I'm a junior at Big Picture, representing both the school's robotics team and student body as a whole. A while ago, some students advocated to our admin for more STEM opportunities in both the high school and middle school level. And we later found out that the Big Picture will be going under a revision process to transition to more project-based learning in the upcoming years. Currently, 28% of our high school is involved in robotics. But without engineering or core physics classes, our preparation is limited. We're striving for more equitable STEM learning opportunities within our school, recognizing that not everyone has access to external STEM experiences such as robotics. Through project-based learning, there's potential for broader range of STEM opportunities. We're reaching out to the school district for support in Big Picture's transition to a more project-based learning style. And the robotics team is eager to contribute to reshaping our educational approach. The students want to ensure that our voice is incorporated in this change. Big Picture learning style hasn't been fully articulated to the community in the past 7 years that we've been here as students. We want to be a part of this transformative process and ensure that the future Big Picture serves students looking to enter STEM fields. We will send out an email to the board with more details regarding this revision process at Big Picture. Thank you everyone for your time, and thank you to those for coming here today to help support this vision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alex Zimmerman and I'm president of Stand Up America. Guys, I want to speak about something what absolutely critical. I live in the city almost 40 years and I candidate for Bellevue Cons. Yeah, last 2 weeks, Bellevue Council appoint Consul Mohammed Malakatian, who work for Amazon, deputy mayor. These are pure qualifications of government, Bellevue government support a corporation officially right now, because never happened before for 40 years. So what does this mean? When government support corporation is a classic fascism. You can find this in every book. Situation so dangerous, you know what this means, because it's transferred to board of school, what as I talked to you many times. And I repeat again, we need stopping this because you act in exactly the same way. Freedom of speech is for everybody. You cut this, so you forgive me, but you look to me like a pure tyranny and fascist. How is this possible? Why is it 10 people only speak? Where comes these rules? Yeah, I complain about this many times, and I will complain before you don't change and start acting like American, not like a fascist. There's democracy and freedom of speech for everybody without limitation. 2-minute limitation, 10 people limitation is all limitation. You know what this means? And you not have reasonable limitation because you make a rules what is you doing yourself. So you are a pure fascist. You understand what this means? And I thinking you are a real Führer, because what is you doing? You never care about people. And this happened before many times. So start something doing like American, not like a fascist. Thank you very much. This is for you, my friend. We'll give you this.
Okay, next we have item number 5, the approval of the award of contract for Malum Architects of the Big Picture School. So,
Great.
okay, here we go.
Yeah, while Jack is coming up, maybe I'll just make a couple comments about big picture. Madison talked about this, but we basically, I wanted to just mention a few things before we talk about the approval of the architect. But we are going through a kind of school redesign process, kind of re-envisioning, reimagining of the big picture school. And we're excited about it because the kind of the core of it is about elevating student voice and ideas around what they would like to see at the big picture. And so our commitment is to make that a very student-driven redesign process that kind of builds on big picture's already kind of values around project-based learning. So we are excited about that. That is kind of the core of the work at Big Picture, of the learning, and then of the building that we're building for them at the Eastgate site. The thing I'll just mention also is before we've already gone through an EdSpec design process with Big Picture community. And so I think based on the dreams of the Big Picture community, we've taken those specifications that they've designed and then have used that to figure out what we can do to the Eastgate building in order to meet the needs of Big Picture students. And so we're excited because, and maybe Jack, you could talk a little bit about this. I don't know if this is where you were going to go, but we're excited because we're going to do things like build out a new science wing that's centered around project-based learning. We're planning to build out a kind of a performing center, increase parking and things like that. The other thing that Big Picture has talked about is with their focus on internships, they've wanted a professional space where they can bring their mentors and things like that. And so we're looking at building out kind of a common space that is really centered around kids meeting with their interns and things like that. And so we're excited about the work. And what I'll mention also is the total rebuild of a building is somewhere around $120 or more now dollars. And so being able to retrofit and redesign the Eastgate building is going to cost us around $50 million or something in that area. And so it's quite a bit of a cost savings for us to be able to do it this way and use an existing building. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Jack.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am here to seek your approval for award a contract for the architects, Malum Architects, for the Big Picture redesign. And as Dr. Maki discussed, that we started this work back when we were going to build a brand new site on the current Big Picture site, and to the tune of about 120 million total project budget, what was allocated for that. they took the staff and the student design and teacher design team to give the specifications about what kind of things do you have to have at the school to do your job. And Dr. Amaki talked about places for the interns to work with their mentors, and places for more public presentations, and needs for more rigorous science programs, as well as a lot of applied learning, which again was more around the things we're doing with STEM, and a great robotics program over there that's getting going, and to be able to go ahead and really kind of reimagine the big picture school. So when that process was going on, we had all of the ed specs necessary. We were working on a schematic design for the new building. At the same time, we were also in a situation with a general fund here due to student enrollment decline, where we were contracting as a district. In other words, utilizing smaller space, having to consolidate, having vacant schools. And so it became evident that when we're in that kind of a mode to go ahead and add more square footage and more building is not a very reasonable way to go. So anyway, that's where we looked at being able to utilize the Eastgate School and redevelop that to meet the specification, the ed specifications that have already been developed and given to Malum Architects. So the award of this contract is to go ahead and redo their architectural contract at a lower amount, and to be able to go ahead and continue with Malum, with all the work that they've done with the staff, to be able to develop Eastgate Elementary into big picture secondary school. The amount that we are looking to award the contract is in $4,818,900 plus $40,000 in reimbursable costs. So generally, every architect contract that we have provides a certain amount for their reimbursable costs, for all the costs of printing the drawings and other kind of consumables that they use for that. And again, we feel that the work that Bellevue has done, they have a good understanding of the program, and this just helps them carry it over to how we can take and repurpose Eastgate Elementary and make it the kind of school that Big Picture needs to be able to offer the type of program that they really want to provide. I should also note that the amount is based on a maximum allowable construction cost. So based on design, they've determined that the cost to rebuild and redo Eastgate Elementary is $42 million. The fee is not negotiated, but is dictated by Washington Administrative Code. So that's in a whack. And so there's a certain percentage that they are allowed to claim for new construction or remodeled construction and so on. So it's based on a schedule. It's not they come in and have a negotiation and try to get the, work out some kind of best deal like that. It is a highly controlled process for that. So with that, our recommendation is to award the contract. If you have questions.
Let's have a motion for to approve the contract, and then let's have the discussion.
I make a motion to approve the contract.
Second.
Okay, so now discussion. Do you want me to? I think I should do my little roll the die thing.
Okay. Thank you, Jack, for your the information you shared. Can you share what is the projection of how long this would take from doing the design to completing the project?
Okay, right now our schedule that we're working on, based as we know it now, working through the city of Bellevue for permitting, will allow us to get out in the fall of 2024 for getting our construction documents out and getting the project to bid. And then we would look to start construction in the spring of 2025 with final completion in probably July of 2026. So we're looking at about a 15-month construction window for that. The one thing that is a little bit nebulous right now is getting it through the city of Bellevue, because they've had a lot of turnover in their staff there and other things. But we've also started the process, and we have a team of people at the city that we work with to get our projects through. So fingers crossed, we'll be able to keep that process going.
And one other question. I understand that we are in the middle of trying to determine what the future of Big Picture looks like, whether it's going to be continue as a hybrid or a full project-based learning. Is the design flexible enough to go either direction?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we've already accommodated a lot of these types of things. Again, a lot of the things that we do in our current schools that we've been doing up to this point really are based on flexible use of space, because what happens today in the next 5 years is one thing. What happens 10, 15, 20 years down the road is going to be something different. So try to have as much flexibility for how programs and instruction changes.
Great, thank you.
I'll just mention, we'll make sure that happens. I think what's nice is we're doing a redesign process right now. Our chief of schools, Aaron Miller, is kind of shepherd that along, and then working with these architects who have basically kind of been on this journey with Big Picture for a few years now. I think it'll be good for us to make sure that we do those things together so that the building matches the program that we want.
Okay, so next would be Phil.
How many students are we designing the revised Big Picture campus at Eastgate to accommodate?
Right now, we're looking at about 525 students at the capacity of that school.
So we have a current population of about 300, I think, at Big Picture. So we're able to accommodate some growth if we're able to get the high school program to be fully utilized.
Yeah.
The only other comment or question, I guess I have two more questions. Comment, if there are issues in coordination with Bellevue, I would encourage you to reach back to the school board and see if there are ways that we can engage with our elected counterparts to the city to help make sure that there is priority put to your project. Hopefully just positive.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we have done that on occasion before, so.
I'm sure. My other question is, again, I'm new here. Can you help us understand what subsequent approvals you may be coming back to us for the Big Picture construction process?
Okay, the next approval would be for the award of contracts. So we put the project out to bid in the fall of 2024, and then based on and what will be a hard bid job. In other words, it's not a GCCM or design build. It's a hard bid job. And so we would award the contract for construction to the lowest responsible bidder. Responsible bidder be determined by references and other experience in the K-12 field. And then we would bring that recommendation to award the construction contract to the board. And then after that, we would go ahead and begin the construction process, provide updates and everything like that we normally do through normal channels here to the board about progress and the rest of it, and then be able to bring the project to the board for award of completion, that the project has been completed per the architectural specifications.
It's fair to call that process a design bid build process, what you just described, that the design is what we're contracting for now,
right? And
then you'll do a bid process, and then the construction contract will be the next one.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so it's my turn. One, I feel really much more at ease knowing that you got the community involved, the students and the staff that are going to work there. And two, yeah, you're continuing with these architects because they're the ones you selected before, which is why I don't see like bid tabulation and all that. It feels a little weird to be approving a contract without seeing the contract, but I went back and saw that that's what we've been doing. We just look at a memo about it. It says award of contract. I think some number of years ago, we may have actually seen the contract. Not that we would, be able to really muddle through it, but I'm just wondering about that. We don't have the contract in the board packet.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I have a copy of it. It's about a 16-page document that basically identifies the scope of the work for the architects. It identifies the subconsultants that they hire. So it's an architectural fee for the architect, and that includes all the subconsultants they work with. So civil engineers, mechanical, electrical, and all the people necessary to provide the professional expertise and requirements to fulfill the contract, and the documents necessary to get it out to bid after it's gone through the city approval process. That.
Okay, I don't know when we changed that, because I feel like a long time ago I saw like contracts, and now I haven't, obviously, for the last several years, because I just did a search back.
Well, we can certainly, we
yeah.
can certainly provide you a copy
Yeah,
of that if you'd like
it
to have
just feels like it's like dotting the I, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're voting on something that we haven't seen,
Okay.
which is a little weird. And then beyond that, I think you answered my other question about, we don't see a bid tabulation, and because that's coming for when you actually do who's going to build this thing.
That will come from
Yeah.
the contractors.
Right, because you already did it for this architect group.
Right. And
Okay.
this, yeah, and there was no bid tabulation with the architects because we selected the architect with help from the school community and so on. And then that process is not really required to have any kind of a evaluation. It's pretty much a subjective process once you've developed your short list of all the architectural firms that are interested.
Okay, thank you. So next, go down to Monica.
Thank you so much, President Watson, and thank you, Jack, for your presentation. And really, you know, a lot of our questions, the questions that I had were answered on Monday. And one of the things that I did want to make sure that I put into the space just for the public was around making sure that any items that needed to be replaced were energy efficient. And so just making sure that we are being thoughtful and mindful of that. And one of the questions that I still had that I don't think was answered on Monday was around the existing warranties on items that we have in the buildings. I'm just wondering if any of those existing warranties for items that we already have been identified so that we're not replacing them or spending unnecessary funds on replacing items that we have warranties for. So I'm just wondering if anybody is keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so Eastgate was built and opened in 2009. And so that is 15 years ago now. So basically, the only warranty that is still in effect at Eastgate would be a roofing warranty. And so we're still going to be maintaining some of the roof. But because we're doing a project there and there's a very limited amount of remaining time on that warranty, and the fact that we're going to be demolishing some of it and adding new construction and a new roof, we'll probably replace the entire roof and start over with a new warranty. But other things in terms of the equipment and things like that are usually warranted for a period of about 5 years. We have the contractor is required to provide us with a 2-year warranty on everything, starting on the date of board acceptance of the project. Should note that Eastgate was the first school that we built using ground source, which heating and cooling for that, and requires no burning of fossil fuels to heat or other kinds of expenditures of electricity to cool the building other than a pump that circulates the water through the well field. And so that was the first school we've done in that, and it turned out to be so successful that we have done it in all of our elementary and most of our middle schools. And one of the big things that we are really passionate about is making sure that we design schools that are not only good, solid places for kids to learn and teachers to teach, but also that they are sustainable and they are cost effective. And we have kind of a motto that we've been using since we started projects in 2002 with Phantom Lake, that we want to use our capital fund dollars to the best use that we can to save general fund dollars in the cost of utilities. So now with our general fund issues and the rest of it, we're trying to really reap the benefits of that. So yeah, well taken on that. And we're doing everything we can do to reuse things in the school, reuse warranties, but also make sure that we're building a building that's going to give us a good 50 years.
Excellent, thank you.
I think Jane wants to say something else.
I have one other question. Talking about being sustainable. Have we thought about creating parking spots, which are, because since we have so many of our staff members who travel far to come to Bellevue to work, to create parking spots, which is where they could recharge, so to encourage electrical vehicles?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yes, in new construction that we generally try to provide charging for electrical vehicles. And it's also a requirement as well to have that.
Right.
So we're trying to make sure that we do that. So we just got the first one at Puesta del Sol open, and it's out there being used by the public, so, and the staff.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so now time for the vote on the approval. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Passes. All right. Okay, now we're looking at an annual plan report on equitable access to programs.
It should be on. Well, while you're trying to get it on, I'll just say it's exciting just thinking about our buildings and sustainability, because our buildings, I mean, Jack and his team have been kind of the leaders in sustainability in our district for sure. And yesterday we kicked off our sustainability committee, and so which we're very excited about. And it sounds like, in addition to our own Phil Block, who's on the committee, we've got just some really remarkable people who care about the environment, who are going to help kind of lead us into the future around sustainability. So we're excited about that. I'll mention before I turn it over to Heather Edlund and to Kristen Tinder on this annual plan update for you, that equitable access to programs is one of the most important things that we can pursue in our district. It's a key priority in our equity and accountability policy. And so today you're going to hear updates about two different programs, our advanced learning services and then athletics and activities. And so that's going to be our focus for today. But really our goal is to build equitable access in all of our programming and in our services. And so you'll hear more about that in the future, but this is the focus for today.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Aramaki. So for the record, I'm Heather Edlund, Executive Director of Student Staff Engagement. I do have Kristen Tinder and Jeff Wool here today, and they'll introduce themselves in a little bit here. I would echo what Dr. Aramaki just said there. I would say our work toward equitable access is the work of every department, everything we're doing. Our equity-driven decision-making really is about how are we making equitable access to everything we do in the district. That's why we look through that lens. And so while today you're going to be hearing about a more narrow focus, even today we heard about Angela, right, and her golf phenom, and the ability to do something through digital discovery, that's equitable access for her, right? Given what she needs. What we just heard about with Big Picture, student voice and choice in that, what does that school design look like, right? That's equitable access to that program, right? How do we build that out? What are our stakeholders saying about that? So even though today we're going to be looking at a very narrow focus, each time we have a report, you really are hearing about equitable access. Last time you heard about student agency in our schools and what they're telling our schools and how they're, influencing what happens. And so it really is just a very comprehensive initiative. And I'm just really excited that we have a board policy that drives us to continue to do that work. And so even though today it's narrow, throughout everything we do, I think this commitment C is really is the core focus of the work. So if you want to go ahead and move slides here. So we did receive some questions, and so I'm going to address a couple here. More focused on what you will be hearing in the upcoming. There was a question about college and career. And so you will be having a report on Future Ready coming up. It's scheduled, and that report will cover a lot of the pieces around CTE courses, IB, AP, college and the high school, students who are achieving certifications. So you're going to hear about the equitable access and the subgroup information for those as you start hearing about the Future Ready report. We also last year brought forward the policy and procedure around comprehensive school counseling plan. 2 years ago, the state passed the Washington state passed that we required all school districts to adopt a comprehensive school counseling program that was in alignment with the American School Counselors Association model. And part of that model is for us to use the gap rubric there in terms of how we're addressing student needs. So as we continue to be reporting to you too on that initiative, you'll be continuing to hear how gaps and subgroups and access for our college programming are addressed. But you'll also be hearing about that in the upcoming report. Another report where you're going to be really focused on that will be early learning. That's another place where, you know, especially I think after the pandemic, early learning was one of the things that was really challenging. We needed space for kids in K through 5. Preschool spaces became spaces that were used then for that. Online learning was a more challenging learning option for younger students. And so really driving towards how are we increasing that equitable access and preparing students has been a big driver. I know Dr. Armarkey has talked about early learning with you all before. So those will be a couple of places where you'll see that featured coming up. If you want to go ahead and switch slides now, I'm just going to highlight a couple of areas from nuanced areas from the report on advanced learning, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Tinder, who will talk a little bit more about the questions that were asked in this specific area on Monday. So the first piece I want to just make sure that people recognize when they read the report is we've had an overall increase of students in advanced learning since 2019 of 550 students. So in all subgroups, with the exception of our Black and African American, which we'll talk a little bit more, we've had growth. More students are becoming eligible, and we've had the greatest percent overall increase in our students learning English. So the report talks a little bit about the changes and practices that we've done so far to improve equitable access, and those are showing that we are qualifying to a greater degree students who are learning English, to a greater degree students who have disabilities, to a greater degree students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And part of that, you know, part of the reason we note that is because when we try a more equitable practice in eligibility for advanced learning, we've been piloting those in our Title I elementary schools. And so we're seeing, are we getting the results in those places where we know many of those students are? We have our dual Spanish language programs there. We've seen a notable increase in Hispanic students, MLL students, free and reduced lunch. So then when we expand that across the district like we have this year, we just completed our screening for all second graders. We expect that we would see other types of notable increases that would match that. And we're also really working with our educators on noting who are your twice exceptional learners, what are the qualities that those educators have, so that we're not, you know, that implicit bias that might be there, right? How do we combat that? How do we know what it looks like for a student to be twice exceptional? So those are some of the pieces that I wanted to highlight that were in the report that maybe aren't drawn out explicitly in the report. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, who can introduce herself and talk about the questions.
Thank you, Heather. I'm Kristen Tinder. I'm the Director of Advanced Learning and Innovation for Bellevue School District. And thank you for your questions on our report. Heather mentioned that we did just wrap up our new universal screening of our second grade students. So we had new legislation that was passed in May for very quick implementation in September. To expand our universal screening processes across the state for the highly capable, which we call advanced learning here in Bellevue schools, which is very, very exciting because Bellevue's been ahead of the curve on this, but we did not want to stop there. We wanted to say, we know that we're under-identifying marginalized students, low-income students, students that are multilingual learners. We know we're under-identifying our students with special needs for our advanced learning programs. What can we do that will continue to help us identify those students? So we chose to add second grade as an all everybody in screening opportunity. So we just finished yesterday. I was just sharing with some of my colleagues that we just went in and screened. Let me just double check the number here so I give it correctly. 1,186 second grade students went through the full advanced learning screening. They sat for the test that only 329 students in 2021 and 430 students in 2022, 2023 sat for, because that was a parent referral only process. So we said, we are putting all our eggs in this basket. We are going to look at second grade. We are going to make sure that we are taking a very big screening opportunity, which was a huge all-in effort. So just wanted to say that we're very, very excited. One of your questions was around a projection. Because we just finished, we don't know where we're going. We don't want to say, oh, we expect this many. So we will have numbers in our year-end report for the board. And then for the staffing process that happens in early March, we'll have the result letters. Families will be getting those results at the end of February as well. So we can look at what our increases are in those areas. You had also asked about what are we doing to market and advertise. And we've done some increased advertising around the parent referral process, the teacher referral process, in addition to kind of going all in on second grade, kindergarten, and fifth grade. And we're looking at where those targeted family emails, family flyers, conversations with PTAs can be to really increase places. We know that one email and one little advertisement in the Bellevue Reporter does not work. And so we're trying to really look at our marketing strategies in new and different ways for some targeted places. So continuing to add our marketing in future years as we move forward with our referral processes. Students can be referred at any grade level, and we consider those students. The universal screening is at kindergarten, second grade, and fifth grade. So students we also universally screen students who are new to the district, as well as students who qualify for free and reduced lunch in any of the elementary levels. So lots of effort there. One of the other questions that you asked about was strategies to support marginalized students once they're receiving advanced learning services. That is very much on our mind, and that is something that we're focused on for the spring. Our current effort has been around how do we pull off this incredible increase in just the number of universal screening. So we are shifting our focus to how do we support diverse population with inclusionary classroom practices? How do we make sure that teachers are feeling prepared and supported through professional development opportunities? So happy to share much more about that. And later today, you'll learn that there is a more full advanced learning report scheduled for next school year as well. So we'll get to dive in to that. Another one of the questions was, to what extent does family residence location impact access to all of advanced learning? Students who receive advanced learning services live in all neighborhoods in Bellevue schools, and we know that. And we also provide 5 different service models that are at every school. So it's not just the centered program. Students can qualify for domain-specific services in just say one area. So they can also qualify for domain-specific areas in math, literacy, and nonverbal. Qualifying in all 3 of those areas puts the student in the full-time program where they can choose to go to one of our centered sites. If they're qualifying in one or more, but not all, they can have those services within their neighborhood schools, within those attendance area schools, or within their choice area schools. So lots more on that. Happy to share more about that in other ways. And the other question was around transportation. We do provide transportation to our centered programs. So a student who qualifies in the Phantom Lake neighborhood has school bus transportation provided to the centered program that they're assigned to. And so parents don't need to take students there. The transportation is provided via the school bus. Thank you.
Thank you. And next slide. So the next part for the dive on this report today was around athletics. We do have a Department of Athletics and Activities that where we're looking at the participation. This, as I mentioned with early learning, was another area that was deeply impacted by the pandemic, particularly athletics. Many of the activities we could do with social distancing or masks, but athletics, the physical proximity of students, things like that. And so it has taken us up until this year to get to 95% of our pre-pandemic level of participation. And within that, we still have gaps in terms of the participation. So we have about as many girls as boys participating in sports. However, it's more of the same girls play every season, so fewer unique girls playing. There are still some gaps that we have around, funding and pay to play and things like that. Mr. Lowell? Did he go somewhere? Oh, hi. Oh, and you have a mini mic.
Yes.
He's back with the mini mic. I'll scoot over. Hi.
Slid in right behind you. Good afternoon. Jeff Lowell, District Athletics and Activities Director, Title IX Coordinator. I'll clarify a couple things that Executive Director Edlin stated. So during the pandemic, one of the hardest working parts of our staff were the coaches, especially at the high school level, where June 1st of 2020, we had an opportunity to open our fields up and do some things outdoors, and coaches stepped in to a void that was there and worked for some of them for 3 years straight, working with kids and making sure that they had an opportunity to engage in all sorts of different activities. That what we've seen since the pandemic, though, unfortunately, just in athletics in general, is a swing back to what I would say is kind of the dark side of athletics, which is more about wins and losses than about getting kids out on the field and participating. That's not necessarily here in Bellevue, but it's across the state, it's across the country. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours about that. We keep emphasizing here the need to make sure kids have an opportunity to participate. And if it's not in a sport every season, it is in a sport, an activity, some place where they can end up connecting with their school one way or another. You had 4 specific questions for me. I'm gonna answer them a little bit different order than what you gave them to me. One of them, one of the questions you asked was what constitutes activities, and specifically is robotics an activity. I look at activities in kind of 2 ways. One, at the high school level, we have activities under the WIA umbrella, so the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association defines certain activities under their umbrella as such. Cheer, drill, music programs, forensics, those are activities. And then in general, what we're talking about are things that are involved in the student day that fall into the category of the associated student body. So students get an opportunity to engage in interest areas, end up developing clubs and things of the sort. Our third area where we can end up really talking about activities is in our CTE department. And so part of a CTE program, a teacher has to have what they would consider to be leadership opportunities for students to actually engage in the work that they've done in the classroom outside. So those CTE clubs, or CTSOs as they're called, that's another area of activities for us as well. So robotics falls into that category. At one school for a long time, it was a CTSO. It is a CT club in other places, lots of ASB clubs. I think the most at any one of our schools right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of 80. At Newport High School, I think they have about 80 clubs, active clubs right now, a variety of different levels. Some of them just interest, others that they're driving to raise funds to, continue to engage in those interests that they have. And that kind of takes us to the next question, which is the gap that Executive Director Edlin was talking about. And one of those areas is the fact that we do have a pay-to-play fee. I will point out that pay-to-play fee came up in 2007 for the first time. I was in the community. I wasn't working for the Bellevue School District at the time, and got to sit in some of those community meetings and listen as that pay-to-play came into effect. And it hasn't changed since 2007. It's the same level. It was $100 in 2007. It's $100 right now. It hasn't changed. And it's something that I'm, while we ask for that pay-to-play fee, I'm proud of the fact that others have raised multiple times in other areas. It's much, much greater than that. And we have not done that. We've found other ways to say we're going to continue to fill that gap. One of the specific questions about pay-to-play is it a barrier to access? And I'm going to answer that kind of 2 ways. One, we don't know what we don't know. Sometimes people will end up saying nothing. They'll end up being quiet. They won't give us information. Could I say 100% it's not a barrier? The answer is no. I couldn't tell you that unequivocally. What I do know is anybody who does want to participate and they show up, they get to. We figure out a way to get them out on the field. Some of the very easy interventions Somebody says, I can't pay $100 today. How much can you pay? Let's put together a plan. Let's figure out how we can end up making sure that you can get out on the field. That type of work takes place on a daily basis. From there, what other type of barriers could we end up seeing with that? The pay to play also kind of extends to non-WIA sports. We have 3 sports that we offer: badminton, lacrosse, and water polo, that do not fall under the WIA umbrella. 2 of those sports, badminton, the pay to play fee and the transportation fee that we offer, or that we apply to athletes in that particular sport, covers the cost. Badminton is not an expensive sport. Lacrosse, water polo, they are expensive sports. And the way our procedure is written right now, the parents and the students actually pay the freight to make sure that those programs run. What I will say is the way that particular sport is structured under our procedures right now does create barriers for certain kids to participate. So what have we done this fall to address some of that? We've done some work within the four building athletic directors and myself. We've taken a look at our discretionary spending. We've taken a look at discretionary hours that we have that the district provides all those schools, and figure out a way to apply some of those discretionary hours to take the cost of a coach for a water polo, for example, off of the plate of the parents and the kids. And we're looking at continuing to move that direction as we can to end up taking those costs down to provide more access to kids. But that, if we're talking about a barrier for the pay to play, that would be it. Financial support for families, what I will say is that's done in a number of targeted ways. We have partner organizations, obviously, excuse me, Jubilee Reach, Rainier Athletes, groups like that end up doing some very targeted work with families to make sure that kids who want to participate are able to do so. As we get into the high schools, though, that's where parent support groups, other name for booster clubs, but those groups end up doing some work to offset costs for extras, camps the teams are going to go to, certain travel, other type of support that way. That's where those groups end up coming in. And then the final question that you ended up asking, to what extent is transportation a barrier to access? I'm going to break that up into 3 different categories. We'll start with activities. Transportation, for a lot of activities, there isn't a transportation budget for ASB clubs, so those clubs will have to end up planning for their year if they want to access buses, for example. If the robotics team to end up driving from Big Picture down to Auburn Mountain View High School, where there's a robotics tournament, for example, they would have to budget for that cost and end up figuring out how to pay for that. They have opportunities to fundraise if that's what they want to do. We've done some things to make sure that that budgeting is done in a kind of a systemic way, especially in the music programs, talking about how to not apply a fee every time there is a band trip, for example. How are we going to end up taking care of those things? So activities is one. It's a challenge. It really is, especially with how active some of our clubs are, how active some of those groups are. So we also think creatively about other ways that kids can get where they need to go. At the middle school, the only challenge we really have with transportation is there is a very set time when we can end up offering activity buses. And so therefore, programs have to be from X time to Y time after school, and that's it. When it might be better if we could expand that time, it could be there longer, could be a little bit later in the afternoon, there could be some homework done, and then they could end up running a practice. That's really the only challenge when it comes to transportation. In high school, that is a huge cost. It is something that we offset partly from from a transportation fee that athletes pay, and then we end up figuring out a way to end up covering the rest of the cost. It doesn't come close to paying what we end up paying for transportation when it comes to high school sports. It's not something that we ask them to end up paying more. The one sport where the transportation fee is not seen in a weekly bus to a competition, but it's seen kind of in postseason travel, is golf. And with our golfers, we end up getting them, they get to the golf course, especially for home golf matches. They get there through their own transportation. And then away trips, they'll take a van, or they'll take a different type of transportation to an away match. And that addresses those 4 questions that you guys have.
Okay, so now time for discussion, and Phil comes up first. I have to get better at saying Director Block, Director Aras, Director Webster. I'm just not.
Yeah, I really appreciate all this information. I think that this is an important part of what we do. I want to really reflect back on what you just said, Jeff, about the coaches doing a lot of hard work during the pandemic. While my student wasn't with Bellevue school coaches, I saw that a lot of coaches took advantage of the fact that these were outdoor activities and a chance to keep kids active and engaged. And I think that was one of the strengths during the pandemic was those opportunities. And I'm delighted that they were able to take advantage of that and really, whatever we can do to reward and recognize that. I firmly believe that was a good thing, and recognize that. I'm a little bit struggling with some of the activities compared to sports, and they're in the same category here. So that's just why I'm struggling with it, because it's really hard for me to track the level of engagement in some of the activities versus sports, especially cut sports, where there's kind of a baseline level of engagement. And I think that your level of engagement is probably highly variable in the clubs, even within specific clubs. And I also think that the experiences is probably quite variable from school to school, and I'm struggling with how to have consistency in measuring and tracking that, and making sure that we're being thoughtful about that. Because my personal experience is at a choice school. It's a totally different experience. They try to run most of their clubs during lunches, not even after school, and that's completely different than just what I was hearing describes there. So that's just one of the simple examples where I'm just wondering how we try to standardize something that's completely non-standard right now, and make sure that we're having meaningful reporting coming back on those activities.
Okay, so I'm next, and I just have a few of the usual comments. I'm struck on the advanced learning with the universal screening. I feel like I'm the historian here, but that was first raised under Dr. Mike Riley. I mean, it is a long time coming. It looks like it took 15 years in the act of the legislature, but I am very glad to see that. I am curious what, I understand, I do like this, where you can get services in your home school if you don't go to the centered program. But, and I can imagine what that might look like for math or literacy, but what does that look like for nonverbal? What do you get? I mean, do you go build Legos or something? I just don't know. And then, yeah, so, but that just struck me. The sports thing, I got lost in thought thinking as you're talking, because I do really worry about the whole transportation thing, and also about those barriers that we can't quite quantify or see, but I think there are kids that just don't go out because they don't know how their parents are going to pay for it. And I have heard something about like cheerleading uniforms being like hugely expensive and difficult. But I know, even from the team I was most involved with and went to the booster club, that you'd think it's the cheapest thing, right? Cross country, you just need shoes. And even the shoes I think I spent $1,000 that year. So I think there's barriers to the, and the trip to state. And I remember like one parent just paid for a kid who qualified for state. I mean, this is years ago, because she knew that family just couldn't pay for it, just pitched in. And so we have stuff like that going on that we don't know about. But I do thank you for working on it. We have to just keep trying to chip away for it. But I do think, transportation is equity. And, as we've tried to get more low-income kids into the choice schools, one of my son's best friends left because there was no way his parents could get him from International to Newport, where he would have been able to be on the golf team, but his house was near enough he could walk with his golf clubs. So he had to drop out of International just to be able to play golf, because there's just no way if both your parents are working. So that continues to be a problem. Let me call now on Director Webster.
Thank you, President Watson. So I'll start with Heather and Kristen. Thank you so much for your presentation. You know, I look at you both as exceptional leaders in this work, and I'm just really excited to hear about the universal screening. It's been a long time coming. So thank you. I know that you addressed a lot of the questions on Monday, and you know, I do want to hear more about the district's thoughts or process or strategies around actually being intentional with reaching out to the African American students, since they are the only subgroup that hasn't grown. I just want to hear more about what kind of strategies are in place, if any, to help to bolster that number. So I'll start there, and then I do have a question for Jeff too, but I guess I'll wait. Should I
No, go ahead
and
finish.
ask it? Okay. And then the question for Jeff. Thank you so much, Jeff. You're great. My question is around kind of the middle class families, people who may make just a little bit too much to qualify for any kind of scholarships. You know, I know that I've been hearing a lot this year from families who are struggling to have their kids participate in these activities or sports because they just make a couple dollars too much. And so I'm just wondering, since this is probably going to be an ongoing issue that we're going to be seeing in our community for years to come, if there's been any thought or potential solutions to exploring how we can best support those families in the long term. Thank you.
Okay. Or should I just go ahead and let's see what Director Aris has.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Kristen and Heather and Jeff. I have several questions. I'll start with the AL program. First of all, can you repeat the actual number that we tested in the second grade? Because that was a 1,186 second graders. That's awesome. That's phenomenal. And I just want to throw this in because I know that there's, often people think when we talk about increasing the number or of opportunities, there's people go into the zero-sum game thinking, and we need to clarify that if you qualify for special ed or in high cap, that you will be served. Am I correct? Okay, just want to put that on the record there. My question is on domain specific. How are we making sure that it is as rigorous as self-contained? I'm hearing interesting comments around domain specific versus self-contained program, that the students who are in domain specific, they're not getting as challenged as they would like. And also around twice exceptional testing and qualification, especially for the younger kids, because often we don't figure out that they're twice exceptional right off the bat, or if we find out, how are we supporting them to make sure that they're not automatically not qualifying because they may have a challenge in a specific part of the way we test, right? So, like for instance, if you're hearing impaired or hearing challenged, phonemic sounds may be of a hindrance, yet that is part of the testing at the early learning space. So how are we making sure that we are supporting all of our students and their needs and that they're properly being served and addressed? And also, we do have quite a few twice exceptional students in our district. How are we maintaining their support on both ends of this? The learning. And then for Jeff, my question to you is, I know our robotics students have done a lot of advocacy work over the years. And there's two things that's kind of still sticks out in my mind. Is one of the things that was brought to my attention is equitable access. And I understand that we're in process of of rebuilding and bringing robotics back onto campus for Newport High School, but international is still off campus. You know, I understand that we're creative in having kids use the bus and carpool, but I've also heard from students that trying that method is so difficult that they eventually quit because it takes them an hour each direction. And so where are we, or how are we thinking about making sure that it is equitable access for our kids, that the transportation does not become an issue for that? And also there was also the ask of, can they get credit for being part of robotics in the same way for PE? And where are we on that as well? If you could address those two things, that'd be great.
I'm looking at the time, so I'm wondering if it's okay. I've written all the questions down, and I think probably you all have too. But if it would be okay, I'm wondering if we could respond in writing to some of these questions or at a future meeting, because some of these questions are so good and they're very important for us to answer. I'm thinking about, I mean, all of them, but talking about like our strategy to support our African-American students in advanced learning. There's so many things that we need to talk about with that, and we couldn't do it justice right now. And then I think with regards to equitable access and how are we identifying the barriers and then addressing those barriers, so much of that is connected to listening to the kids. And so I have lots of ideas around that, but it would be, if you're okay with it, I wouldn't mind us moving to Doug and switching to our safety, and then we will get back to you with all of these kind of thoughts and answers around these questions, and then we can follow up. Is that okay? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's okay. I think we were overly optimistic, 20 minutes per report.
Yeah.
We're ready for physical safety.
Yeah, good evening. Mic is on. Yes.
It's on, but it's not loud.
Yeah.
Try this one. Try this one. This one's good.
Yes, this is much better. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Good evening, directors. Appreciate the time. For the record, my name is Douglas James, your Director of Safety and Security. Here to talk about the annual plan progress report for the Safety and Security Department. I did receive some questions from you all on Monday, and I'm going to weave in some of those answers into the report, but I do want to highlight some of the work of the Safety and Security Department. Next slide, please. So the annual plan goal for this year is to implement a multi-layered research-based approach to school safety to include 100% school participation in annual emergency preparedness training. And that is key, and I'm going to talk about that in a little further detail. Next slide. First, I want you to meet the team, though. We have a very diverse background, a wide range of experience with the team. We are a small but mighty group. We have a retired Washington State trooper, a U.S. Army veteran, a firefighter and paramedic, individual with experience in threat assessment, extensive experience in threat assessments. Another individual has 20 plus years in emergency management, and a retired federal agent and EMT. These team members are subject matter experts in K-12 school safety. We get asked to present to other schools, community partners, and at workshops at various professional conferences. We presented at the Washington Emergency Preparedness Conference, the Washington School Safety Organization, and also the Washington State Emergency Management Association on best practices in K-12 setting. Two notes of celebration. Kelly Hansman in the upper right there, she received her CTM certifications this year. And what is that? That's a Certified Threat Manager certification through Association of Threat Assessment Professionals, an international organization. And of significance, there's only 350 CTMs worldwide. And we have one here in the Bellevue School District. It's a tremendous resource for us. Second celebration, Kirk Rudine, retired Washington State trooper. This last year, he received his Associate Protection Professional certification through ACES International, which is really the gold standard in physical security. Next slide. We have all the traditional safety and security features here in the district. We have single points of entry, security vestibules, and I'll talk a little bit further about that. We have cameras, locks, alarms. We have a safe schools tip line where individuals can report safety concerns, whether that's students, staff, or community members. We have school-based and district-level safety teams to look at best practices and make sure we're implementing things with fidelity. We conduct monthly emergency drills. We have a robust threat assessment program, and we have outstanding relationships with our first responders, Bellevue Fire, Bellevue PD, Medina, and Clyde Hill PDs. But our most important safety resource are our staff and our students. Now, how do we train our students? That's through our monthly emergency drills, our fire evacuation drills, our earthquake drills, our shelter in place and lockout and lockdown drills. Now, up to this year, our staff receive the same level of training that our students do. That is, they go through a monthly emergency drill. This year, under the leadership of Dr. Aramaki and his executive team, we've really elevated life safety and emergency preparedness. And we're conducting all staff training for all of our schools. That wasn't done previously. As you can see on the graph here, school year 21 and 22 and 23 are shown. In school year 21, only 24% of our schools received some sort of all school life safety training because it wasn't mandatory. Now that increased in 22 because word started spreading about the effectiveness of the training, I believe. And in 23 with the implementation behind Dr. Aramaki's support, we're currently at 79% and we're on par to meet 100% participation of school-based training for all staff. That's huge, makes our schools safer places to work and learn. Next slide. So we're doing school-based safety training. That includes active threat response, emergency response roles. It also includes reunification best practices. But we also offer voluntary training for our staff. And over the years, we've put on this 8-hour class, 16-hour classes, and 24-hour classes. And we've had over 690 staff attend these multi-day trainings, really equipping our district to be safer and more prepared. It's tremendous. That's a testament to our staff and their willingness and eagerness to learn and prepare themselves. Next slide, please. Now, training is very important. We focus a lot of our efforts in that arena, but physical security is also important. And we conduct physical security audits on a quarterly basis of all of our school sites. And the things we're looking at is ensuring that we're using a single point of entry. That is funneling visitors through the front office to ascertain that they have a legitimate purpose to be on the campus. There's a legitimate business reason for them to come into our school. We're checking exterior doors to make sure that they're locked and secured. We're also checking classroom doors and interior office doors and making sure that those are in a pre-locked condition. Now, what do I mean by that? Simply that the door is locked. It can be left open with a magnet in the door jamb. But the simple fact that the door is locked, if somebody hears the sound of violence or something concerning down the hallway, all they have to do is pull that door closed, swipe the magnet off the door jamb and pull the door closed and it's locked. They're not having to fumble with keys. They're not having to fumble with a lock because in times of high stress, fine motor skills go out the window. So we've found the most efficient way to secure our classrooms is to make sure those classroom doors are in a pre-locked condition. That allows teachers to allow students to go to the bathroom, go to the nurse's office, or go to the front office as appropriate so the teacher doesn't have to get up and open the door every time a student has to leave the classroom. So we're checking classroom doors and interior doors. We're also making sure that we're using our visitor management system with fidelity and the individuals are checking in on a regular basis and wearing their visitor badges. And we're also checking employee badging, that our employees are wearing their badges, identifying themselves as district employees and displaying them prominently. Now, as you can see by this graph here, our unannounced audits, school year 21 to the most current audits for the first quarter of school year 23, we saw a rise in schools with an unsecured exterior door. That's concerning. In school year 21, third quarter, and school year 22, the first quarter. Now, as we reflect on this and we looked at this as a department, we believe that this was a direct result of our COVID-19 preparation. So during COVID-19, we had very little movement to and from our buildings. We had our buildings locked down. You know, we had a tangible threat that we were dealing with, and we were trying to stop the spread of COVID. Now, as our COVID policies laxed, so did our physical security, and we saw that. And with continuing education and training of staff, we've got those numbers to come back down. Now, are they where we want them to be? No. During the last audit, we still had 6 schools where we found an unsecured exterior door. Now, when we conduct these audits, we give that information to the administrators at that school. We identify that specific door. And we also make sure the chief of schools knows about that. And if there's an issue with that door, if there's a physical issue, we engage our facilities department to make sure that that's rectified. Or if we continually to see a problem with the same door, whether it's a classroom door or an exterior door, we provide training for staff on the importance of ensuring that door is locked. Next slides, please. I think you skipped one. George, you go back one. Oh, looks like we're missing a slide. Okay, that's fine. We do have challenges with inconsistency with our audits. Hey, the sheer volume and size of our schools, right? We have a lot of exterior doors, a lot of interior doors. We have open campuses at the secondary level. Our students come and go from lunch, right? It's educating our students also. We have rotation of staff, new administration at buildings. This year we had members from schools moving to new schools and trying to familiarize themselves with that environment. We also sometimes have a difficulty of getting staff to understand the importance of a locked door, right? Here in Bellevue, we have a lot of people have a perception that nothing bad happens here, right? We call it the Bellevue bubble. Crime does happen here and we need to be prepared. So it's a continual training and education of our staff and our students. Talk a little bit about reflections and challenges that we have. Scheduling of our training, we have had some challenges, particularly with our itinerant staff. We have a lot of staff that move between buildings, OTs, PTs, music teachers, right, PE teachers. So making sure that they have access to the training, it's required some flexibility and adjustment on our part, but we're getting there. There is a denial that we have crime here in the city of Bellevue, right? It's important that we all recognize that we are responsible for our own safety and we need to look out for one another. And also change is difficult. We have moved away from a strict physical security model of having a uniformed security guard at a campus on a day. The chances of that security guard being in the right position at the right time are very slim, right? We are all responsible for our safety and we have to work collaboratively and cooperatively on that. So there's a big difference between feeling safe and actually being safe in our schools. Next slide. So we're going to continue delivering training to our staff and our students. We're going to not just try to get to the bar, we want to set the bar for physical security standards in K-12 here in Washington State. And I think we're well on that way. We're going to gather data and feedback on that training and how our staff and our students feel about the safety training. We're going to continue to drive environmental change and provide feedback to our schools on those physical security audits so we can drive improvement. And we're going to continue to empower and prepare our staff and our students. Next slide. I can open it to questions.
Okay, well, I'm first in the order for this one, and I'll just say I'm just so impressed with this department. I've said that before, but I can remember before we had this department, and I just love the professionalism and the way I just feel confident they are on top of things. I also went through the 8-hour training pre-pandemic. Now I'd like to go back for more because it was just really interesting and well done. And I guess if I'm glad to see you're working on getting the teachers through it because I know I was dismayed when I looked into it of how there weren't teachers from every school or enough people, but I'm glad you're on top of that. And then I think the only thing I would add is if we could maybe extend something a little more out to maybe more of the parent volunteers, because I just heard this year from a parent volunteer who was a little alarmed to find herself at school when there was a drill going on. So, and then I will pass it to Director Webster.
All right, thank you, President Watson. So just 2 quick comments and then 1 quick question. So we know, education is a huge component of keeping ourselves safe. So I really appreciate all the work that you've done around educating our community, our staff. Thank you so much, Doug. And one of the things that I also wanted to highlight was that I noticed that when incidents do happen, communications to support our students have gone forward like pretty quickly in recent years. So I just wanted to give a shout out to to you and the communications department for making that that happen. My question, and I think I asked it on Monday, was around a mechanism to report suspicious or unusual activity quickly for students or staff, and maybe like a 411, what is it, not 911, but 988, like we have that for mental health. And I understand that there is a mechanism that can be used through text or email, and I just wondered if you can speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a Safe Schools tip line, and you can call, you can text, you can email, or you can go online and enter information. That is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by myself and several other members of the district. That is a quick way to get information through. Obviously, we encourage our staff and our students, if it's an imminent threat, it's a 911 phone call, right? But this Safe Schools tip line is something that we message out to our staff and our students during training, especially when we provide classroom-based training to our secondary students. We talk about the importance of reporting suspicious activity, and the Safe Schools tip line is one of those mechanisms.
Thank you so much.
Okay, yes, you're next.
All right, thank you very much. I wanted, I think I said this in the previous year, but I want to applaud you and your team and working so diligently with our partners and with our city and police and so on, and making this program so amazing. And I love the fact that we will be meeting 100% this year. My question to you is, as we receive new employees, or as you said, people move from one building to another, can we make this a mandatory training as a continuation of, so that people are always aware? As Director Webster said, education is, #1 way to prevent incidents. And so I don't know if that is already there, or if not, to make sure that is something that is there.
Don't respond yet. We'll go through all the questions, and then if we have time, we'll.
Okay.
But he has the answer clearly. So.
Okay. And next is Director Bach.
I want to reiterate what everyone said, and I mentioned on Monday, when every parent drops their students off at school, they want to know that they're safe. And I'm truly, truly impressed with everything I've learned about your program. Every question I've had, you've had a great answer. Not just a good answer, and it's really something that parents should take a great deal of confidence in, and appreciate that their children truly are safe in our facilities, and that we have an effective plan for that. I was at Puesta del Sol the other day, and I was impressed to see the naloxone, AED, and instant kits right there, accessible in a clear, obvious spot, central location. Really impressive to have all that equipment available and ready to be used, and it just shows that we're ready. We've thought this through. We've got the ideas. I want to reiterate. You've heard me say this. I think parents are one of the important parts of the safety consideration, and consider ways to continue to include them in your communication and training. I think that there's opportunities there to bring them in, particularly around reunification and other issues, which will help us if and when an incident like that happens during a school day. I also want to encourage us to think about how we think about allergy issues as they come up, because I personally consider that a safety issue, and making sure that we are tracking the number of allergy incidents that happen in schools and working to reduce and eliminate those. To just have that as a metric that we're keeping track of. We're not measuring it. We're not able to manage it. And that's one of those ones that I'm personally aware of, and I know that there are other families when they're impacted. Sometimes if you don't have it, you're completely blind to it. But when you do have an allergy issue, it is a life-threatening situation for those individuals. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Doug, in 3 minutes or less, you can respond to any question that you heard.
Very good. I can do that. So talking about allergies, our nursing department oversees the individual health plans for students in the district, and they do track that information and instances, medical emergencies, et cetera. So our nursing department does have that information. That's not something my department directly tracks, but certainly that is a concern. Absolutely. The question regarding new hires, that's a great question. The district level safety team came up with a recommendation of the life safety training for staff, all staff at the schools, and we presented that to the executive team. And Dr. Aramaki said, make it and go forward. So we're running with that. One piece of that was the new hires. We recommended that we do training for new hires, right? We have new hires hiring every week. And there is an orientation where they learn about the Bellevue School District, the mission, the values of the district. But we're trying to figure out the best way to weave in that life safety training, right? It's capacity for my department. As you can see, there's only 6 of us. And if we get a small group of people every week, and we're also tasked with providing training to the schools, I'm not sure how we can do that. So the proposal we have is to do it on a quarterly basis, bring those people back on a quarterly basis. So we bring a large group of new hires back at one time. But certainly we don't want to miss that group. We don't want them to go almost a full year between the opportunity of receiving that training.
Any comments about parents, just training of
Yes.
parents and things like that?
Yeah, thank you. So every opportunity we get to talk to parents, we relish that. We have presented to PTSA groups at schools. We've presented to the district PTSA. We go out to principal coffees, principal teas. Some schools have had safety nights, and we are there standing shoulder to shoulder with our administrators, talking about safety efforts in the district. Any opportunity we can get to do that, we do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. We are pressed for time, so we're going to need to move on to the policy schedule update, which will be Chief of Schools John Harrison. And we have a memo here.
Yes, the memo explains and describes kind of the background and context that I provided for you on Monday. So you now have that in writing, so you can refer to that for your reading pleasure. It just gives you a little bit of background and context. Kind of cut to the chase here. As you know, our policy schedule is what we refer to as a rolling schedule. And earlier this year, the board prioritized the policies that we would deal with, you would deal with this school year, as well as next school year, and they're included in the policy schedule. The third document that's provided on the agenda is just a summary document that just provides you a list of the policies that we'll be dealing with this second semester in the 23-24 school year, and the policies that we plan on dealing with in the 24-25 school year. The reason why this is coming to you for your approval tonight is because of pressure on earlier agendas earlier this school year. We've pushed the first and second reading dates a little bit later than initially planned for in this current school year. So no changes to the policies we're asking you to deal with for the remainder of the year, just a change in the dates. It looks feasible and doable, and we're looking for your approval, formal approval of the revisions to the policy schedule this evening.
Oh, wow. So we need a motion. So do we want to, does anybody want to move to approve at least I'm thinking the shorter chart, the schedule?
Yeah, I move to approve the policy schedule as presented.
Thank you.
I second.
Okay, so now let's have some short discussion, but we're going to open with Director Webster.
I think that we addressed the questions that we had around the policy schedule on Monday. No questions.
All right, and then Director Aris.
Yeah, I don't really have any additional questions regarding the schedule.
Thank you.
All right, Director Bach.
Again, I'm still learning. It looks like the current policy schedule has a potential hiatus between the June WASDA updates and it's some 2024, 2025 school year stuff. Do we not work on policy during the summer, or is that not an opportunity to start a first reading on any of these?
Great question. No, the board, previous boards have done, quite frankly, in the summer, a tremendous amount of policy work in the previous 2 summers. So you're accurate in that there is nothing scheduled for July, August at this point. But part of the thinking was if we need to, then we've got that opportunity to do that. So you do meet 1 meeting in July, 2 meetings in August. So there's not, a hiatus. One of the things I'm thinking about is depending on the degree of the WASDA backlog policies, we may need to use some time in July and August to address some of that. So short answer is no, we continue to do policy work in July and August. At this point, nothing scheduled for first and second reading.
I remember you saying that there'd be at least five WASDA updates. So
correct.
Depending on how bogged down we get in those.
Correct.
Okay. I think that would be my comment. And let's take the vote on whether we can approve this. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, directors.
Okay, so now we are on to director discussion. We're gonna have to be. Oh no, looks like we're gonna make it.
Nice job.
All right, because we have 6:15. I don't know how we sped up there, but we did. Okay, so we're going to open with Director Aris.
I have several things I want to bring up. First is, as you know, we right now I guess we're a third way through the legislative session, and we're still in the thick of it. We still need to, I so appreciate Dr. Aramaki working extensively on the bills for our district and other districts. So I kind of wanted to applaud you on this. That said, we as a board, we actually need to start thinking about this next year and positions. Typically, positions are for WASDA and where we want WASDA to stand and align with. We have to submit it sometime by, last year was mid-April. The dates have not been set yet, but what I'm hearing is the positions has to be turned in by the beginning, either first or the second week of April this year, which means that if you guys are interested or want a specific position as a board that we want to submit, we need to make sure that we have time to discuss as a board and agree on before that timeline. So that really just gives us a couple of months. So I know we're doing a lot of advocacy next week. And as we move forward in this next couple of months, if there are specific things that you feel that we need to prioritize as board directors in Washington, please think about it and come up with those positions and write up and share it with the rest of the board ahead of time so that we can put that up there. And the other is that often what I've learned in my very short being a board director in this space is that there are a lot of other districts who may have something similar. So if there is something you think that may be a concern or an issue that other districts may have as well, it may be worthwhile to also for us to think about reaching out to other districts and co-write it as well, as especially given the fact that we don't have weighted vote for being a large school district anymore. I'm looking at the fact that the positions that we submitted last year did not pass by 1 vote because the weighted vote was removed. We need to be more creative of how do we convince and have that dialogue ahead of time to make sure things actually move forward. And maybe this is one of the thoughts I've had is that we know that McCleary decision was put into place with good intent with a lot of flaws. And there's been a lot of discussions about what do we do as a board directors to make it more holistic and supporting all the students, because it was shared with me the decision or the financial package or formula that was decided was based upon 2009, was it? But we have 2024 needs. There's a huge a gap between the two. And so if you guys have thoughts about how to, or languages around that, please do share. The other thing is regarding national conference. I think we have talked about this. I think it's important that we send a couple, it'd be great if all of us could go, but I understand that we can't due to time restrictions and so forth, to make sure that we send a couple board directors to see what are other school districts nationwide doing that we could glean from. And I know we pride ourselves in all the great work we do, but we always have room for improvement. And so it'd be great if you could kind of vote on yes or no and sending a couple of board directors. Any thoughts?
I thought that the discussion said we didn't need to have a vote on that.
Okay, we don't do, okay, so do we have a consensus that we're sending a couple of people?
This has to be within the district budget.
Are the two of you interested?
My understanding also is that we just need a consensus. And so I think that's all that Director Ours was trying to make sure that she accomplished today.
Yes.
If the board is fine with it, then I'm happy to work with the two of you to get that coordinated for you.
Great. And then the final thing is, I was thinking of this, it's another concern, we talk about how do we support in our community, the cost of living is so much higher than, and we have a portion of a community that does not have access to support because they don't quite fall into the financial maximum for free and reduced, which I think for a federal level is $40,000, I think, for a family of 4. And however, for HUD, for our area, HUD qualifies 80,000 as being the qualifying for free and reduced, which is, two federal agency that has 2 different numbers. And I understand for, federal access to federal funds in certain spaces, we have to stick with the federal, but I wonder for something like our activities and sports, we consider using HUD definition versus a limitation to support students, because if HUD considers 80,000 to be considered low income for our area, we may be able to support those students who constantly get missed. Just a thought.
Okay, next is Director Block.
Thank you. Those are all great discussion points. I wanted to briefly reflect on the kickoff for the Sustainability Committee. That's an effort that kicked off yesterday at Posta del Sol. We had about 25 students, administration staff, parents, and outside folks who participated in it. It was wonderful to see lots of interest from and examples of student agency and voice participating in that process. That was something that particularly excited me. And I look forward to the potential outcomes. It was a great opportunity to see our very newest school building and all the efforts that have gone into making that particular site sustainable, and also thinking about how to continue to make that evergreen. But it also highlighted that our students are currently experiencing a wide range of school infrastructure throughout the district. I think we heard a little bit about big picture today. I also want to reflect on, this is the first superintendent update. I haven't seen transportation called out as a specific item, and I consider that a success. I know it's been a long time coming, but it seems like we are crossing an event horizon on transportation, and I'm really looking forward to not having that be a regular part of your presentation. I don't want to miss that opportunity, because we heard the equity presentation today, and I think that the transportation is a big part of equity in Bellevue School District, and being able to provide consistent and reliable transportation solutions is an important part of that. I also want to reflect on the fact that we continue to talk about the fact that we're anticipating a budget deficit in the next fiscal year, and thinking about when we want to start cutting to meet that need. If we are anticipating cuts, even if the proposed legislation that the state legislature passes, we still anticipate cuts will be needed. And the longer we go, that creates some uncertainty for staff and staffing, but it also creates a sharper curve as we move to those cuts. I also heard during the public comments, Bellevue Schools Foundation individual, again, suggesting, they're interested in helping, but they don't quite know how yet. And so continuing to work with the board and others to identify specific targets and fundraising needs that we can effectively raise funds for and help work with our local partners to make that happen now. On that measure, I'm currently working with one of our schools to help them fundraise with an auction that's coming up soon. I might be talking to you, Dr. Aramaki, about a potential donation to that. But I want to recognize that we do get a lot of support from our community. A lot of community companies have contributed to the auction that I'm working on. Restaurants like Cactus, Ascend, Daniel's Broiler, local leaders like DeLille Cellars, Pagliacci Pizza, Costco, Woods Coffee, as well as almost every local museum and theater group have contributed to our auctions. And it's great to see that support. And as a community member working to support schools, that also reminds me to support those companies because they are giving back to our community and supporting our students. And that's in addition to the local employers that do significant matching support, the Microsofts and Amazons, as well as many other companies that provide matching support for their employee contributions, as well as in some cases employee volunteer contributions. And those are all really fantastic support for our schools and greatly appreciated.
Okay, so now it's my turn, and I'm going to try to be super quick, but it's funny because it's a discussion, but it's not really a discussion. So I want to say thank you to Jane for raising that thing about the 80,000 and the HUD and all of that, because that's important. And thank you to Phil for the update on the Sustainability Committee, which I'm very interested in and glad to know that that's underway. And I just want to say, to the extent that anybody out there in the universe might be listening, please apply to be a school board director. What you have to be is 18 years old, a citizen of the United States, and registered to vote within the director district that centers around Anatai area. And then I'm just going to pass the commenting and discussing over to Director Webster.
Thank you, President Watson. And I echo the sentiments that you made regarding Director RS's comments about HUD and the Sustainability Committee that Director Block is a part of as well. I'm just wanted to give a shout out to the robotics program at Sammamish High School. I got a chance to go visit, and oh my goodness, those are just some extraordinary kids. They showed me all the inner workings of, what they do. They even gave me a little boatie. And so I have that in my car now, but it was just a great experience. And I'm just really thankful to the staff that helped to set that up and organize that, and to the students who were just so wonderful. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you got 30 seconds. I
don't have 30 minutes of stuff to say. No, so regarding actually the position 3 and director selection, I do want to make sure that people understand, because there's questions of, who decides on this. And I think it's really important that we make a clear announcement that the board members who are currently sitting here will be the deciders after we will look at the applications, and we'll do the interview, and we will decide as the 4 of us for the position 3. And, please apply.
Right. We don't have preconceived notions, so we want to see a lot of good applications.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you need to add something? No? With that, I'm going to say we're on break.